We have both John and Pete Najarian here with us, co-founders of Market Rebellion. John's here, Pete's over there. Hey, there you go. Hey, look over here for a second. There he is. Look, there's your brother. Look at him.
There he is.
Looks all right.
It's a handsome alert with Pete.
You want to start us off, Pete, on this? This is, I tried to go through it and cover as much ground as I possibly could there a minute ago. Some of this seems to me to be easier said than done. I know that there are opportunities in Venezuela, but how do you think U.S. companies are looking at them right now?
Well, you know, and immediately we started to hear from some of those, Exxon and Conoco talking about, hey, look, we're not sure we're ready to enter in there. So that's an issue, I think. Obviously, Chevron, as you mentioned, is already there. But I think that the big bugaboo for all of us is going to be how are they going to be able to get that here, and what sort of numbers are we really looking at into the future? And you did a great job of diagnosing all of that, quite frankly. I mean, the ramp up just alone is going to be $7 billion just to kind of get started.
Right.
And then eventually to get even further along, you're talking about tens of hundreds of billions of dollars. So this is not just a small project by any stretch, and obviously it's heavy crude. I'll let John take that because there's a lot of stories about heavy crude and how that has to be refined.
Yeah, I was reading some of those stories. It is interesting, John, because you look at it, I was saying in the last segment that a lot of our facilities in the Gulf Coast were built to do that.
Yes, sir.
So on the one hand, you say, all right, great opportunity, okay, but as Pete says, on the other hand, expensive opportunity, and I just wonder whether companies are going to go diving back in here. Do you think they will?
I think they will, but it's going to take a lot of support from the United States, quite frankly, because of what you also identified when when Chavez came in and they basically just stole a lot of the equipment.
Well, like Exxon sued and they got, pennies on the dollar, right?
Exactly.
They got killed on that.
Nobody wants to go in and see that happen.
What do you mean by support? Financial support?
No, I mean military support. I mean, they're going to want to know that what they go in to spend in Venezuela is not just going to be stolen, not just going to be nationalized again, or they won't go in.
Right.
So unless they get the right kind of government in there, if it's too socialist leaning, I mean, this was the richest country in the region by far in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And then crude oil broke all the way down from 35 bucks a barrel down to 15 in the late 70s and into the 80s. And that's when the problems started happening. They had to print more money because they weren't getting as much revenue as they needed from.
Right.
And then the people started rebelling because they weren't being compensated in the same way. This is the same thing that Saudi Arabia and a bunch of the states in the Middle East worry about. That's why they've been doing things like Dubai and a lot of the other tourism-related things. Because if you're just so dependent on one thing,
which they are,
but they've got more gold than South Africa.
Okay,
they've got more rare earth elements, REEs and so forth, like lithium and cobalt and nickel and all the things you need for EVs and for defense stocks. So I think getting this back online is going to be very important, but China is really being choked off right now. And that's
a part of it.
If you look at 4D chess like the president likes to play, you're basically looking at China not having the same sort of access to crude oil and thus energy.
Russia, Iran.
Exactly.
Cuba, the president predicts will fail as a result of all of this. We'll see.
Well, and it makes it much tougher for them to wage war because domestically, their demand is a certain amount. They've only got 90 days supply of crude right now, of energy, if you will, in China. If that drops into the 40s, they don't have enough energy to wage war. They can't go into Taiwan. So this is a big part of this chess game that's being played right here. It's not just about what's happening in Venezuela. It's what might keep them from attacking, which they really apparently wanted to do.
All right, Pete, how do you see it then? And what would you add to the conversation in terms of, in Venezuela, you got a leader, this woman, Delcy Rodriguez, who is, John's talking about whether it would be a socialist leader, does have a Marxist background, but right now seems to be quite cooperative in the last 24 hours with what President Trump's intentions are. So can she be the person?
Yeah, my guess would be she's going to continue to be cooperative. I think that she sees the light in this whole thing. And if she doesn't, I think that there will be some hammers that might come down as well from the U.S. perspective. So it's interesting. And I think that they understand that it put themselves in a very big bind because of the fact that when you really look at the decline, I mean, we talked about the the decayed pipelines and labor shortage and price of oil and that being coming down and coming down. Here we are sitting basically, even today, with everything that's going on, $58, give or take, a barrel. That's something that's significantly less than we had been in the last couple of years, for sure. So this is something that I think is interesting. And now it's all about the ramp up. And are they willing to allow us to be able to be there? Are we willing to have some of those big fellas out there that really want to be a part of this whole thing? Because it seems like, at least right now, that Exxon and Conoco want to sit back and wait and see how this plays out before they want to commit to this whole thing.
That's why I don't know that the oil story in the near term is the story. It might be what John brought up. It might be the China story. It might be the Russia story. All right, John and Pete, thank you. The Najarian Brothers with us tonight. Good to see you.